Look, we all fail, right? It's just a part of life, a part of work. But what if I told you there was a way to fail better? A way to actually turn your biggest mistakes into your greatest breakthroughs? Well, that's exactly what we're going to dive into, the science of failing well. So, let's kick things off with a story. And this is a story about a failure so massive, so complete, it felt like it was game over for a promising career. But, as you'll see, it was actually just the beginning. Okay, so this is Amy Edmondson. Now, when she was a PhD student, she had what sounds like a really simple common sense hypothesis. The best hospital teams, right, they should make fewer medication errors. Makes total sense. But after 6 long months of collecting data, the results came back and they were the complete opposite of what she expected. The better teams were apparently making more mistakes. Can you imagine? She said it felt, well, catastrophic. And that right there, that's the big puzzle we're going to solve. How on earth does a moment like that, a feeling of total, absolute failure, of being 180 degrees wrong, how does that become the launch pad for one of the most important ideas in teamwork today, psychological safety? Well, to figure that out, we've got to look inside our own heads and see what's happening in our brains when we fail. So that catastrophic feeling Amy Edmondson talked about, you know the one, it's not just her being dramatic. Nope, it's a real hardwired response that happens in all of our brains. So let's get into it. Why does failure feel so bad, both physically and emotionally? Okay, so think about it. Your brain's number one job, above all else, is to keep you alive. And if you go way back in our evolutionary past, failure, like failing to spot a saber-toothed tiger, was a life or death situation. Now, a wrong hypothesis isn't a tiger, obviously, but our ancient brain wiring doesn't always know the difference. It can react as if it's the same thing, kicking off this primal, deep-seated threat response. All right, check this out. What you're seeing here are 2 different highways for information in your brain. Over on the left, that's the low emotion road. When you're calm and cool, information cruises along nicely to your prefrontal cortex. That's your rational thinking brain. But look at what happens on the right. When high-octane emotions like fear or frustration hit, this little part called the amygdala basically hijacks the whole system. It slams the brakes on your rational brain before it even has a chance to weigh in. And this has a name. It's called an amygdala hijack. It's basically an immediate, overwhelming emotional response that's way out of proportion to what actually happened. Your fight or flight system just takes over. It's why a bit of criticism at work can feel like a full-on personal attack. And this is exactly what was happening to Amy Edmondson when she saw that data. But here's the kicker. She found a way to fight back. So the big question is, how did she do it? How did she get past that hijack? Well, she had this incredible insight. Not all failures are created equal. And, that simple idea is the absolute key to learning from our mistakes instead of just being paralyzed by them. So she came up with this brilliant framework for sorting out the different kinds of wrong.
Okay, let's break this down because it's really useful. First up, you've got your basic failures. This is simple stuff like, you're following a recipe and you forget an ingredient or you forget to hit record on a call. It's a single slip up in a known process. Easy. Then you have complex failures. Now, these are more like a perfect storm. It's when a bunch of little things, none of them a big deal on their own, all line up in just the wrong way to create a disaster. And finally, and this is the important one, you have intelligent failures. These are the good ones. Seriously, these happen when you're pushing the boundaries, trying something new where you don't know the answer. They're not just okay, they're essential for any kind of progress or innovation. So once you see it like this, the game plan becomes super clear, right? For those basic failures, you use checklists and processes to prevent them. For the complex perfect storm ones, you build in safeguards and backups to soften the blow. But for intelligent failures, the goal is the total opposite. You don't want to prevent them, you want to maximize them. You actually want to create an environment where it's safe for people to take these kinds of smart risks. Okay, but what exactly counts as an intelligent failure? It's not just any old mistake. Edmondson gives us a super handy 4-point checklist. 1, it has to be for a good reason in pursuit of a worthy goal. 2, you've got to be in new territory. This is something you can't just Google the answer to. 3, you've done your homework. You have a smart hypothesis. And 4, and this is crucial, the failure is as small as it can be to get the lesson. You're not, betting the entire company on one wild idea. All right, so this framework is great. But let's be real. How do we deal with that initial gut punch, that overwhelming emotional amygdala hijack that happens in the moment? How do we get our rational brain, the pilot,
back in the cockpit so we can actually use this cool framework. Believe it or not, it can start with a single number, 6. As in 6 seconds. That's about how long it takes for all those stress chemicals, we're talking cortisol and adrenaline, to start washing out of your system after that initial spike. So the very first step is incredibly simple, but man, it is not easy. Just pause. Give yourself those 6 seconds before you say or do anything. And during that pause, or right after, you can try some of these surprisingly simple brain hacks to stop that hijack in its tracks. Deep breathing. It's a classic for a reason. It really does calm me down. Or just changing your setting. Seriously, just standing up and walking to a window makes your brain switch gears. You could even do a quick math problem in your head to get your logical brain fired up again. Or, and this is a big one, talk to someone you trust. It literally helps share the mental load. But that first one on the list, that one might just be the most powerful of all. It's all about naming the emotion. Just saying to yourself, okay, I am feeling really frustrated right now. Or, wow, I'm embarrassed. When you do that, you're not just wallowing in the feeling. You're using language. You're analyzing it. And that simple act physically shifts the activity in your brain away from that reactive emotional amygdala and back to your smart, thinking prefrontal cortex. You go from being the emotion to observing the emotion. And in that tiny little space, that's where you get your power back. The power to choose how you respond. Okay, so let's put all the pieces together now. Let's go back to Amy Edmondson. Picture her, staring at that computer screen, looking at data that basically screamed, everything you thought was right is 180 degrees wrong. So after that initial wave of, oh no, my career is over, she took a breath, she managed that emotional hijack, and then she looked at the situation through that new framework. And what did she see? Her failure checked all the boxes for an intelligent failure. She was chasing a new idea, she had a good hypothesis, and the only cost was her time. So instead of thinking, I failed, she asked a much more powerful question. I wonder what this could mean. She reframed the whole thing. And that question led her to the incredible insight, maybe the best teams don't make fewer mistakes, maybe they report more of them because they feel safe enough to speak up. Wow, she chose the discomfort of learning over the comfort of being right. And this whole mindset, it actually has a name. The great philosopher Immanuel Kant called it the motto of the Enlightenment, sapere aude. It's Latin for dare to know. It means having the courage to use your own brain, to question what everyone else takes for granted, to step into the unknown, and to face the fact that you might be wrong, all because you're chasing a deeper truth. I mean, that is the very heart of embracing intelligent failure. So, here's what it all boils down to. Real progress, I don't care if it's in science, in your job, or just in your own life, it demands that you take risks. It demands the courage to be wrong. So the real question for you isn't if you're going to fail, it's how you're going to fail. So I'll leave you with this. What experiment are you going to run this week? What new territory will you step into? What intelligent failure will you dare to risk?